Okay, I figured I would go over an introduction to NUKE this week. So this is NUKE, NUKE X. NUKE X actually allows you to do particles. So this is what it looks like upon starting. You've got your timeline area right here with stop, play, backwards, and then your actual frames. On the right hand side, you have your properties bins. And then you have different graphs, your node graph, curve editor, dope sheet. And then on the left, you basically have all the different nodes that you can import into your scene. And NUKE is a node-based program, which you'll see in a second. I'll call up a file that we can track through. But what you can see here is all the different nodes that you want to make. And once you click it, you get the node down here. And then once you click on the node itself over here in the properties bin, you'll have the information on that node. Um, so let's open a file and we can track everything through. So here's a scene that I put together that's of a matte painting that I did. And what we can do is just go through some of the very simple aspects. So right here, if we have a read, it's going to ask us for where we want to pick up the image from. So let's just say, let me do the background, and then you just click open. Now, typically sometimes when you open up a read, the sequence will be checked. And then if you have multiple frames in here from a frame padding of like 0, 1 to 0, 10, it'll load in that whole frame sequence if this is checked. If it's unchecked, you'll see them all separately. So let's just check one and click open. And there's your read. Now if you can move this around with your left click, and if you hit 1 is a viewer. You can see the viewer down here. It's a default mechanism in NUKE. Let's make this larger. So all I'm doing is middle mouse rotating in so that we're zooming into the node graph editor. And if you middle mouse click and move around, then you can move across into the panes. Then you also have a little GUI down here on the bottom where you can slide that window and move within your scene to see the elements. And now if you select another node and if you hit 1 through 10, you can attach a new viewer. And now since I have 1 and 2, back on my numeric keyboard, I can go 1 and 2. So I can see the image going back and forth. So that's very useful. And then if you've sometimes run into issues with your script, and the files are called script in NUKE, it's not a project file, it's a script, then sometimes what you want to do is you just select the viewer and then you hit delete. And then all you have to do to activate the viewer again is just click on any node that you want to view through and hit a numeric number, and you're back with your viewer, and here's your viewer. Now, you might have noticed that NUKE is, when we were clicking around, NUKE is a single click for its nodes, so you don't have to double click to activate it. It's a single click. And then here we go to here, and then in the properties, you see this letter 1, you can have multiple property panels pop up. So this is the property panel for read 5, which is this one. This is read 5 foreground SL. So now if I double click or click on that, now you can see that I'm inside this node, and then the last node I was in falls down to the bottom. If I click on this ProjCam node, now you can see the ProjCam. So it's up to you for how many nodes you want to have accessible. Sometimes I'll do 1 or 2 just to keep this area from getting too condensed. And then even in the viewer here, if you middle click, you can move the view If you hit F, that'll center it, and if you hit H, it'll magnify to the edge frame of your viewer. Now, all these panels, if you can see when I scroll over, are maneuverable, so you can make the viewer larger, you can move the side panel larger, so you can maximize the real estate. So typically I'll try to keep the properties side smaller and then try to go in between, the scale for either of these just to have enough space of real estate. And then the other thing is if you have dual monitors, you can slide these and move them around. Now within the layout tab, you can see within here that there's all these layouts that are already preset, and then you can save a layout. So if you move the panels and everything around and then save it as a layout, then you're able to access it later on. Now, right now we're just in the startup default, and there's hotkeys for this, Shift F1, F2. So if you go to 2, you can see everything switched to this layout. So now we're maximizing the node graph area, and the Proj Cam area with the nodes is small, and then our viewer is really small. You can go to layout 3. Now the viewer is large, and then the opposite is true. Now if I hit H now, you can see it maximizes to the edges of my viewer. And then if we go back to our restored, so now we're back to what we had before. And then if I hit H here, then that maximizes it. So it just takes a little bit of getting used to for your different nodes and for your layout for your organization. And then now up here you can, right here the F8, this is the exposure. You can overexpose just to view your image, just to see like details and elements, and then really crank it back down. And if you click right on the f-stop again, you'll go back to what your f-stop originally was. You can switch from 2D to 3D. Now if you're working in a 3D file, as I am here, I have a projection camera, I have an image read, a pre-molt going into a Proj 3D, and then I have geometry here. So if we go to 3D, you'll see an access node, and kind of like Maya, you can navigate around and move within this area. Now if I double click the geometry itself, and now if I hit F, we'll zoom in on where that geometry is located. You can see here I'm just projecting on a simple bent card like a cylinder, and then here you can see my Proj Cam. And let's go down a little lower, and now I'm on my scene node, and now you can see everything in 3D for my file. And NUKE can really, it can demonstrate, exactly what you're looking at very, very easily. Now something else that we didn't talk about, if you go under Edit, you have your project settings. Now you want to set this up in terms of what your actual image that you're trying to output through. So right now, the output size of my image is 1024 by 436, but you have all kinds of presets. So you just want to make sure you set this up, and you can create new ones within here by clicking New, and you just give it a name, and then just whatever size you want it to be. Now another handy thing that you can do is in here for NUKE you can save location. So this is going through my computer, and you get the C drive, D, E, and then I've got folders already saved. So if you want, you can basically add where the folder is at. So right now this is saying Photoshop because I've gone back a couple layers from this path, and this is where the link for the folder will be. So I want to go back one more, and the up arrow here allows you to go up a level, and then back allows you to go back to where you were. So here we are in 01 Castle, and now if I go in here, Castle is selected. So what you can do is you can create a shortcut, and it's whatever you've clicked in here for what browser to go through. So typically I will click all of them, so all of the browsers will be able to access all of these folders, no matter what dialog box you're calling things up. Now if you click OK, now you have Castle, and now if you double click, you'll be there. Now if I go to Files, I'm out. Now if you see single click, I'm over in this area. Single click, I'm in this area. So biggest thing to get used to is the single clicking for NUKE. And then now I can easily get to the layers that I want, and then open. And then now the thing that you can do is you do one, now we're viewing, and you can see we went from 3D to 2D when I did the viewer on the read node, and the reason for that is the read node is only a 2D file. So NUKE is smart enough to switch us from 3D to 2D. So now over here on the right you have a camera and you have default, and then there's other cameras that you're able to access like ProjCam. I double clicked it. Should come up. Should be able to look through the ProjCam. 3D. There we go. 3D ProjCam. So now we're actually looking through that ProjCam, and now ProjCam 1. Now if I look through here, we're looking actually through the ProjCam itself. Now something we talked about is you can use these dialogues to add more nodes. It's blur. And what you can see is there's handles on the blur. You basically hook it up. I just hooked it to whatever and it'll stick. And then you can hook it to the next and then the next. And wherever it goes, see I can't hook it to there. But what you want to do is you can add a merge. Now you can do tab and it'll pop up all the nodes that are available to you, and you have some already preset on the top. But if you start typing the node that you want, type merge or MERG, now you hit down arrow and you're on the merge and you hit enter. And now the merge is actually already hooked up here, and now you can slide the merge over to hook up to our other read. And now if I view from the merge, that's those two nodes put together. And now if I go over the blur, you can see from the viewer, we're looking through the blur. Now the blur doesn't have anything assigned to it yet because I haven't inputted anything inside its properties. So now if I do 10, it's blur 10, and then you have sliders in NUKE where you can just slide and drag, and then the filter type. So each node has its own information that you can work with. So this was just a general overview of NUKE, just to show you a little bit. I have another video where we go over these projection nodes and how to set up a projection, but I just wanted to go a little bit of an introduction to NUKE.